alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh once more. So I'm Dr. Nehal El Naggar from Bahrain, from the Royal University for Women. Of course, it's a great honor and privilege to be here today with you. Of course, I owe thanks and gratitude to the president of the conference, conference chair, and the aibpm BPM, and of course, dear colleagues, researchers, professors, academics, and students. So I was so happy to come third. Actually, we had the pleasure of both keynote speaker speeches and presentations, which basically gave me a nice introduction to my own presentation. Let me share my presentation today. And I thought so much about what would be the topic for today's presentation. What should I speak about? And of course, introducing new ideas and relevant topics for research for both academics and students is always important, and it's needed. However, the empirical research and applied research, as well as Dr. Firdaus just shared with us, is again an eye-opener. So the topic of today's research, let me highlight the importance of entrepreneurship and startup here in the GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council countries. Being in Bahrain for the past 7 years gave me a nice exposure to startups and entrepreneurship businesses, and the strong and increasing ecosystem here in Bahrain and the GCC countries. I have been we missed a little bit of introduction here. So I'm the director of the Office of Student Life at the university, as well as the business professor. So I come across a lot of new ideas, new innovations, and students participating in different activities and competitions, which again is really interesting. By the day, you see the development of new startups and seeing the startup intention, as we can see in today's topic. And we have the pleasure of having my research partner and keynote speaker as well, Mr. Jalal Nasser, who is the chairperson of the Bahrain Statistical Society here in Bahrain. And of course, I'm an expat here, so I thought we should get a taste of the country we're in. And he has a great contribution when it comes to statistical analysis and the development of the research model and the different elements, especially when it comes to this evidence that we have used in this research, which is coming from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. And the data sets used in this renowned and prominent report when it comes to startups and entrepreneurship. And before we start, I wanted to share with you, I don't know if you can just go to the Slido. We want to see a little bit of Paul about the topic and understanding of the topic. It's nice to see the understanding of, or the perception of the monitor and the entrepreneurship intention within our audience. So let me share with you, I'll stop sharing this screen and I'll share with you the Slido so all of us can look at the stop share. I'll share another screen, which is basically the Slido. So if you started already looking at the, entering the poll, so all of us can see the findings, because I'm looking forward to looking at this as the poll. So can you see the poll? So interestingly, so present. So I see lots of responses, which is really interesting. So can you see my screen? Interesting. So we can see over here that we have 85% of the audience. They're increasing. Basically, this is only 27 of the respondents. So let's look at the rest of, so we're not having more responses. Can we have more responses? Okay, let's see. So are you aware of the entrepreneurship intention? You come across the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. This is the second question. Amazing, amazing. Come across the theory of planned behavior statistics. So this is just to give you a taste about, again, the topic that we're going to discuss again today. So our topic for today is basically determinants of the startup intention in the GCC, in the Gulf region, and evidence from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. So this is the agenda, the different topics, and basically it's about the increasing number of startups here in Bahrain and the GCC. However, I would like to shed light on the importance of using international indicators, global and regional reports for all researchers. I believe all of you are currently doing that, but of course, seeing young researchers, future researchers, it's always interesting to look at whatever is happening, whatever has been published in this regard. In this research, basically, we looked at 3 GCC countries, and we'll elaborate. So basically, we have Saudi, we have UAE, and Qatar. And this was because one reason that basically this was the most recent published data and indicators and different reports, countries included in the latest published report. And we wanted to look at the intention. So basically, there was a previous study in 2020 in India. It served the same purpose of our research, and that's why we did a replica of that research. It has been based on the theory of planned behavior, which is basically used to based on the Adult Population Survey (APS), which is one of the most important indicators of the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. The report that we did the analysis on was published in 2016. And the different dimensions, basically, we're looking at the attitude towards entrepreneurship, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control. And one might think that, regionally or within the GCC, or maybe in one region, most of the population would react the same. However, of course, with different factors, and some that we studied within this research actually highlighted some major and interesting differences and findings. Again, I would like to just share with you that this research has been conducted 1 year back, and the extended abstract was shared with the Cyrus Institute of Knowledge in 2021. So again, entrepreneurs, of course, they contribute highly to the economies, and of course, they became an interesting topic of research and academia. The promotion of startups has become one of the key focuses, even like from public and private entities, and a lot of governments and ecosystems are really supporting and interested and following their evolution. National startups ecosystems, again, growing and getting stronger. And there is a lot of literature starting in 2000s and a bit earlier. And we have a lot of cognitive behavioral variables and understanding the personal decision were highlighted within the literature in 2004 and even in 1999. However, there was no study found that investigated the theory of planned behavior per se. And of course, let me highlight that this was back in 2021. We might find few over the years, or maybe immediately after this conference. Would love to see a lot of research in this area. However, looking at the behavioral effects on startup intention in the GCC. And again, the GEM data sets are used at usually at the descriptive level, and not inferentially, that performs binary logistic regression, which was included in this research. As for the adopted research, the study, basically it focused on the theory of planned behavior factors in India. And here the entrepreneurial intention is defined basically as the conscious state of mind that precedes action and directs attention toward entrepreneurial behaviors such as starting a new business and becoming an entrepreneur. The Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, again, apparently most of you already know it. However, it's a consortium of national country teams primarily associated with top academic institutions. They do a very structured survey-based research on entrepreneurship around the world with over 500 researchers. They have research teams for each country. And they began like over the past 23 years, and it began in 1999 as a joint project between Babson College in the US and London Business School. The GEM runs at as a national expert survey and looking at the national context, which I really appreciate, because you know what, like previously, some of the United Nations indicators, they relied maybe on different sources that were not reliable, were not indicative to the actual performance or the actual state of the country on any topic, and sometimes some of the data were outdated. So usually this caused a lower ranking of different countries in previous or like old reports. Now the methodology is different, and now we take accountability of our national data, and we try to present each country like reflect the actual activities and the actual state from credible sources. So research groups or research through national experts. Here, it started with the intention to measure the differences of entrepreneurial activities among countries, reflecting sectors and gender involvement. And here we're looking at individual entrepreneurs, as we have another level within the survey. The adult population survey, providing analysis on the characteristics, motivations, and ambitions of individuals starting businesses, as well as social attitudes towards entrepreneurship. So again, having those characteristics of an entrepreneur, sometimes you might be still working within an organization, but you have entrepreneurial intention. So again, I want to start my business, but I'm still an employee within an organization, public or private. So again, these were some of the factors that we wanted to understand, and we looked at total early stage entrepreneurial activities. So here we're looking at the different stage, on which stage of the entrepreneurial activities and on which level of maturity are you, and looking at the ecosystem dynamic investigation as well, to look at the overall country scores. In this, of course, there are 6 GCC countries. However, 3 countries were in GEM until 2016, 5 countries until 2021, and unfortunately, Bahrain is still not included in the GEM. We're still working on the national research team. However, hopefully we will look into that. But we tried to do with individual research on entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship intentions, but not following the GEM yet in Bahrain. So these are some of the variables, some of the understandings about the components and the constructs used within the study. So the startup intention, so basically it's the new startup efforts. And these are some of the questions. Are you alone or with others expecting to start a business? So again, individually or in the form of different ownership structures. The attitude toward entrepreneurship. So again, the degree to which a person has a favorable or unfavorable intention of starting a new venture. Subjective norm concerning entrepreneurship, indicating the social pressure an individual face while starting a new business or entrepreneurial venture. Perceived behavioral concern concerning to entrepreneurship comprises the different factors related to the ability of individuals and ease of starting business in the country of study. And allow me to share my screen or share the floor with my research partner, Mr. Jalal Nasser, who would actually, he was generous enough to join us today. So to introduce the framework of this research.
So basically you can see the arrows which are going from the independent variables, and thanks to Dr. Pua for illustrating that earlier in her keynote talk. So startup intention in our research is the dependent variable. There are 3 independent variables, namely from the theory of planned behavior. And we added also a moderator factor, or let's say a moderator set of factors, which are demographic profiles that we thought they will have differences on startup intention alone. So in total, we have 4 hypotheses to be tested using the GEM dataset for 3 countries. Now, the first hypothesis is related to, is there a demographic effect on startup intention? Second one, is there an influence between positive attitude toward entrepreneurship and startup intention? The third hypothesis was subjective norms concerning entrepreneurship. Is it related to startup intention? And finally, the fourth hypothesis was, is there a relationship or is there an effect between perceived behavior control, concern and entrepreneurship and startup intention? Again, we used the dataset from 2016. So things might change in the recent years. However, GEM makes available the datasets after 3 years of the survey year. Now, this is a secondary research. We did use the APS data. The total number of studied variables were 11, and we had 6 demographic variables taken from the GEM questionnaire. Descriptive statistics was performed, and you will see shortly the results. The hypotheses were tested using binary logistics regression in addition to chi-square. So we're starting with the descriptive analysis first and then the inferential level. At the bottom of this slide, we're summarizing the regression model. So on the left side, SI represents the startup intention. And then you can see the demographic variables included age, gender, family size, education, work status, income, and then the 3 variables from the theory of planned behavior, ATE, we're abbreviating the first one, which is attitude toward entrepreneurship, social norm, SM, and finally, the perceived behavior control. Startup intention was 35.7% as a total for the 3 countries. However, there were variations between each country and the other, as you can see in the slide. Now, going to the chi-square to test whether or not there is a relation or there is an influence of the demographic variables on the startup intention, this is the summary of the results. So out of the total number of demographic variables, all of them were having a statistically significant relationship with startup intention, except working status, whether you are working full-time or part-time, compared to not working at all, compared to being retired or student. Okay. So that's the hypothesis, the first one. Now, going to the 3 remaining hypotheses, this is the summary. Out of the 3 theory of planned behavior determinants, we have found statistical significance for 2 of them, namely the subjective norm and the perceived behavior control toward entrepreneurship. We were not able to find a sufficient statistical evidence for supporting a relationship from attitude toward entrepreneurship and startup intention. Now, keep these in mind. We will be formulating conclusions and recommendations about them shortly. So basically, the discussion, and then I'll pass to Dr. Nehal. Startup intention in GCC was higher compared to India. Another discussion point is statistical significance of gender and age in GCC countries was more significant than gender and age in India study. The third point of discussion, the effect of family size, education, and working status in GCC were similar with India. The demographic control variables effect of both family size and income in GCC were almost the same with India. However, and this is very important research point, I think, for many of you, it's a new research direction, if you will call it. Gender was negatively affecting startup intention in India, which means women were having more or higher startup intention compared to males. It was the opposite in GCC. In GCC, men were having higher startup intention compared to women. It's very interesting. We've got this opposite direction in GCC. And again, I'm referring to Dr. Pua, where she suggested the big data and the utilization of established statistical databases and how to go and research across countries where journals and reviewers of potential research articles would love to see this rich analysis across countries. Completing with the remaining 2 points of discussion, age, education, and working status in India was higher and more significant than what we have found in GCC. Lastly, in India, individuals are more likely to start a new business where less than 30 years old of age, within post-secondary and above education level, and those who works full-time. Dr. Nehal, for the remaining of the discussion.
So why we were eager to share the contribution of statistics and the contribution of technical aspects and looking at data from different perspectives. Again, joint research is important, and this is a living example. Doing research across countries is important before I follow up with the discussion. And another thing, we have to to collaborate with different expertise and different backgrounds and different cultures, even especially with cross cultures or cross-country discussions and research. So here, when we looked at the 3 determinants, basically we found that findings were very much similar to India in both subjective norms and perceived behavior, with a positive effect. However, there was no statistical significance found with regard to attitude towards entrepreneurship, while India's study found there has been a positive effect. And we are looking forward to conduct the study in Bahrain. And why is that? Because in Bahrain we have the strategic the strategic plan and the strategy for the country, which is Bahrain Strategy 2030. And we have women empowerment is really high. The women contribution in entrepreneurship, it's not because me as a woman or representing the Royal University for Women, where I see a lot of potential. However, on the country level, we can see a lot of females having their own startups and businesses. So we're so eager to find the findings and reflect those findings from statistical data and from the actual, to reflect the actual situation in Bahrain. When performing the logistic regression on each country separately, here we had Saudi Arabia, both subjective norms concerning entrepreneurship and perceived behavior control towards entrepreneurship were found significant. For United Arab Emirates only attitude towards entrepreneurship, while in Qatar, the attitude towards entrepreneurship and perceived behavioral control towards entrepreneurship were found significantly affecting startup intentions. And again, maybe the intensity, maybe the size of the country, the length of the entrepreneurship focus, and sometimes the government support and supporting policies, and of course the ecosystem maturity and integration level. And of course, like they are all booming, God bless, not only in the GCC around the world. However, of course, there are variations that are worth investigating. Here we utilized, of course, the big data and the GEM data set for the 3 countries. The level of startup intention in the GCC was found higher in India. And again, we can always consider the size and the dispersion of the population. Demographics differentiate the level of startup intention in the GCC significantly. And here, again, startup intention level by females is lower than males, but I actually challenge this statement because again we relied on like not the most recent data of the report of the GEM data, so probably we have to, like again, this is a very interesting area for current and future research to analyze the data, because changes, especially in this area, has been very dynamic and very quick and vast. So we are interested to look at the results as we speak. The theory of planned behavior factors effect on startup intentions were assessed. However, they were found to have positive effects, the subjective norms and perceived behavior control, and it actually varied between the 3 countries. Subjective norms were almost found 2 times more likely to influence the startup intentions, and individuals with self-efficacy in terms of knowledge, skills, and experience, and perceiving ease of starting business are 1.3 times more likely to get involved in the startups. We had few recommendations on different levels for policymakers to consider the demographic effect factor. Of course, considering the gender gap, but I think again with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the different initiatives, they're trying to reach some sort of an equality or proper representation of both genders among different industries. More effects towards women empowerment and startup support. And again, I need to salute the country initiatives and the government support for women here in Bahrain. Policies in effect should be reviewed in line with subjective norms and perceived behavior control findings. And again, maybe more training programs on different skills, maybe vocational training, and some knowledge that are required to achieve higher self-efficacy for different individuals. As for startups, again, they are highly recommended to be connected, and to follow the different endeavors done by the ecosystem. So again, lessons learned and sharing the success stories. And actually, we try to do that even on the academic level. We always try to invite those entrepreneurs and maybe different experts as speakers to share their experiences with students, undergrad, especially undergrad and grad students, so they can see how actually those dreams were realized, and those startups, whatever they have done in order to reach their objectives and aims and to reach such successful levels. As for the different members of the ecosystem, again, to provide more information on the stakeholders of entrepreneurship ecosystem who can help and assist various startups, because again, we might find different initiatives, and usually you find that in larger countries, maybe not here in Bahrain, but you might find different on local levels or localities, you might find different smaller initiatives even from the government, but they are not well integrated, they don't talk to each other, they don't connect the different initiatives together, or even the entrepreneurs and startups. And again, one of the sustainable development goals is more about partnerships. So maybe if they partner together, they can reach a different level of maturity or share their expertise without reinventing the wheels. Future research, again, there's a limitation, of course, because of the old data, but of course, we are eager to conduct it, and maybe other researchers to conduct it on the most recent report. Again, we are looking at the rest of the GCC countries. Kuwait already has been included in the recent version of the GEM to investigate the effect of demographic variables individually, and to look at the new inclusion and equality policies and how would it affect the startup intention. To study the effect of COVID-19, of course, of the overall entrepreneurship ecosystems. And honestly, like, I believe we and in academia, we have pushed our students, and we as researchers, we have done a lot of COVID-19 research, but again, maybe some of them can be looked into directly with regard to ecosystems and the intentions during that time. or maybe post-pandemic strategies and the evolution, to use other statistical techniques such as a structural equation model to study the effect of a theory of planned behavior and others. Please find our contact information over here. And on behalf of Dr. Jalal, if I can ask him, maybe he can invite some of your researchers for the Bahrain Statistical Societies. We have like annual, like monthly presentations of research or ongoing research, both on the graduate and academic levels. So again, we would love to have more exposure and more access to research going throughout, like around the world, and share it here in Bahrain. Of course, in person would always be a plus, but if you cannot have it in person, so at least we get together online. And this is the end of our presentation today, and wish you all the best, and thanks again for the organizers and the chairperson and the president, and of course for the moderator with us today, and the fellow keynote speakers and researchers. Thank you, and wish you all the best to all our researchers throughout the 2 days conference, and wish you all the best.